Well, hello and welcome to another Restore Live. That's Restore going out to the Restore UK channel. That's on Facebook, also to the British Unionist People's Voice on Facebook, to the Restore UK YouTube channel, and also over onto Twitter. So if you don't follow us on any one of those channels, if you would like to go across, if you would like to give us a like, a love, or a share, and to the people that is on the live chat this evening, perhaps you would like to tag people into the live chat in order that we can bring as many people here as humanly possible. Now, this evening, given that the sun, well, it shines very, very brightly even now, this time of the evening, and we expect that there'll be a lot of people and they'll be out taking full advantage of the sun, that is. But however, we're going to press on and we're going to do what it is that we're here to do, exposing things in the way that Restore UK normally does. So this evening, we're talking about so-called liberal hegemony, and that's American-driven liberal hegemony, which is infecting our world and which is infecting things in a way that is causing absolute detriment right across the Western world. And we're going to actually try to look at why that it is that this is happening. And also we're going to look at the repercussions of this so-called liberal-driven hegemony. Now, if you've seen the screen, the little meme that we would have put up, and, on that meme earlier, well, I guess that's a teaser of what it is that is to come. And I'm just looking at my phone here to get a look at the meme, because you see, over the past few days, we let's put it this way: we're looking to do some documentaries here at Restore, and we were about to start looking into a particular area in where that we were going to make a documentary. And then just this week, something else happened. And well, something that was really for us in terms of the research that we can do, in terms of what it is that this thing would have handed to us on a plate this week. Well, we began looking into another area. And I have to say that we're going to pursue this particular area. And we're going to, in the next coming weeks, we've already made huge inroads in terms of our research. And in the coming weeks, well, we're going to bring another expose. And the expose would be centered around that there are people from within our own community. That's right, the British Unionist community here in Northern Ireland, and they are masquerading as, well, as loyalists. And they're being paid by the Department of Irish, or the Irish Department of Foreign Affairs, and they're being paid to, I guess, derail people, to take people down a particular pathway, to lead people astray, like the blind leading the blind. And these people, well, whenever that we examine what it is that what they're doing, well, I have to say that they are potentially causing the circumstances in where that there would be a huge split within unionism here in Northern Ireland. And would you believe they are being paid by the Irish government to actually do this? Now, whenever we seen this happening, well, what we did was that we went and we began our research. We began talking to people from within the community, and already we have had a wealth of information which has been unfolded to us. And I have to say that one of the characters that we're looking into right now, well, it really beggars belief that this person would be acting as an agent of influence, leading others astray and leading others to the circumstances in where that what they are doing is that they are, let's just say, disrespecting people from within our community, and by extension, they will cause the circumstances and where that they will cause a huge split within unionism. So what we're going to do over the next few weeks is that we're going to expose these people. It's going to be a no holds barred expose, and we're going to be showing the characters. We're going to be showing what they said. We're going to show you who they support. We're going to show you who that it is that is paying them. We're going to show you the lengths that people has went to cover up these people being paid by the Irish government, the Department for Foreign Affairs in Ireland, and they're being paid to effectively join the other team to score goals against that which they claim to represent. So coming soon on Restore, a huge expose of people masquerading as loyalists from within our own community, taking money from the Irish government to do huge damage to British unionism here in Northern Ireland. So there we go. There is something that we want to be talking about in the very, very near future here at Restore. And just looking at the meme that was prepared earlier, we have it that I'm a mystery woman with an anti-British male agenda. I influence others. My heroine is Jacinda Ardern. Now, I don't know why any of you know who Jacinda Ardern is, but right across the Western world, there are societies within the Western Hemisphere, and there are leaders within those societies. There are leaders which are linked to this World Economic Forum, and these leaders have become more totalitarian than the Chinese. They have become more totalitarian than, let's say, for example, the leaders of, say, North Korea. I kid you not. These people are anti the people from within their societies. They don't believe in democracy. They don't believe in sovereign people electing politicians to serve and protect the people. Oh no, they believe in forcing things down ordinary folks' throats, and in a way that people, well, they become totally disenfranchised from the society and from the politics and from the democracy and from the establishment that is meant to be there to serve and protect people. They've forgotten what it is that democracy means. They've forgotten what it is that their job is to do, and that is to serve and protect the people. Jacinda Ardern being one of them. Jacinda, well, she is the Prime Minister, I think that's what they call her, in New Zealand. And looking at Jacinda's tactics over the past few years, with reference to lockdowns and what it was that she was prepared to do on her own people, well, just looking at that woman, well, she would make Kim Jong-il, or if that's what they call him, she would make him blush in the way that she has been managing her society. Now, earlier on in the meme that we put up with reference what it is that we're about to expose within the next few weeks here at Restore UK, and this is speaking about someone from within our society, and we've put specific information in the headline here, and the reason why that we have is just to show people, or this person, that we know who she is. We know already within a few days who this person, this mystery woman is. And we have written, I'm a mystery woman with an anti-British male agenda. I influence others. My heroine is Jacinda Ardern. And why would this person be operating in this way? Why would this person be steering others to be taking money from the Irish Department for Foreign Affairs, Simon Coveney's office, to I guess, derail the society in Northern Ireland? Why would this person be doing that, doing such a thing? Is she really a unionist? Or is she masquerading as a unionist, influencing others to do the wrong thing? Others that actually can't think for themselves, and others that have been installed as potential community leaders in our society. Others, I may add, that has spent some time in America, in a university in America, and who's been sent back here to influence others in the way of so-called American-driven liberal hegemony, or hegemony, as they would say it. So yeah, so we're going to be getting on with exposing people within the next few weeks here at Restore UK, and it's going to be a sight for everyone to see. So what we want to try to do is that we want to try this evening by way of sharing something from YouTube on our screen, and we want to really show you what it is that the Americans are doing, not just on our society or in our society, but they're doing this right across the Western world. And when you listen to the professors in America talking about American foreign policy and how that it is that they're trying to influence, they're trying to cause regime change in different countries, they're trying to influence those societies to be like American society. And whenever you look at American society right now, well, to put things mildly, you could say that it is a totally broken society. It is a society in which division is rife. It is a society which is literally split in two. It is a society in where that some people have bought into the idea of an anything goes society, in where that there's no rules, in where that truth would be turned on its head, in where that you can pass off lies for truth. You can change what is science, and you can put in place of science race theory. That is what the Americans are actually doing, and they're not just doing it in their own society, but they're doing it right across the Western world. And some of these people that are involved in derailing our society right now, some of these people, well, they have actually bought into hook, line, and sinker the bunkers, which is part of this American driven liberal hegemony, as they call it. We call it hegemony. There's different names for it. But really, what it means is making the world in America's image. So no matter what is comes down the line from within American society, I mean, if there is 101 different genders, well, they expect that what they can do using their NGOs, that's their non-governmental organizations. These are people who are paid, that are paid with money to be in place as community groups, as community leaders, in order that they can influence others and act as agents of influence from within societies right across the Western world. But what they are doing is they are completely, and I mean completely, and I make no apologies for saying this, they are completely destroying the fabric of our society, of your society. And to add insult to that injury, well, what they are doing is that they are completely corrupting the minds of children in schools. And this is an expose that we started off to look at American driven liberal hegemony. And whenever we started to look into this, then something else occurred just this week from within our society. And it comes full circle, people. It comes full circle. And it is the same manipulators which are manipulating people from within our society to lead people from within our society astray. And in the next few weeks here at Restore UK, well, you're going to see the expose of a lifetime. And make no mistake, it will be the expose of a lifetime, naming names, naming people, showing people who want to keep themselves secret. And so far they've done that. But we have the name of this lady who is a big fan. And I'll say this again, just so that they know that we know who this person is. But this person is, our greatest fan is Jacinda Ardern, one of the most totalitarian World Economic Forum puppets in the Western world. And yet this person who is steering loyalists to join the other team to score goals against themselves, this person, well, I can't give too much away at this stage. I wish I could, but we need to complete the research. We need to have all the ducks in a row, so that what we can do is that we're going to completely expose the mystery woman who would have joined not only with the money coming from the Irish Department from Foreign Affairs, not only would she be aligned with that, but she would also be aligned with those
from within our society, which is traditionally from the other side of the fence, which continuously runs loyalism, unionism, Britishness, anything that we ever believed in. Well, this person that I'm talking about, this mystery woman who effectively joined the other team to score goals against that which she claimed to represent, well, she's aligned herself with people from within the Republican nationalist community in a bid to, well, to help stick the boot into unionism and to help destroy unionism. Well, those that walk amongst us, that's the way to look at this. It is those people that you have to watch. Sometimes at least you can see your enemy. At least you know what they mean. At least you know the harm that they mean towards you. But those that are from within, well, they are destroying everything that you and I and everyone else have ever believed in. And they think that they're doing this in the name of loyalism. That's what they think. That's what they think. But, well, we're not going to let them away with it. We're going to expose these people for exactly what they are. And we're going to be showing you in a completely conclusive way that these people, well, they're not fit to walk amongst you. They're not fit to be called loyalists. They're not fit to call themselves British. They're not fit to be aligned with unionism. And I make no apologies for saying that. Coming soon to Restore UK, an expose of a lifetime. So let's get on with showing people here on this screen, people that will come along, people that are watching now, people that will come along in the future to watch this stream. Let's try to tap into what is American-driven liberal hegemony, or hegemony, they call it. We'll have to, there's different names for this, and there's different sayings depending on which part of the world that you're in. So American-driven liberal hegemony is the best way to say it. So let's try and understand what it is and how that it is that it's affecting your everyday life, how that it is that it's causing the cost of living crisis right now, how that it is that it's causing war right now, which is causing you great detriment, which will see Ukraine fight to the death of every single Ukrainian. Who's going to be the losers? Ukraine. The people in Ukraine, all because of American warmongers who seek to expand what it is that they're doing, who seek to push their globalization into places where it doesn't belong, and who are causing huge problems right across the entire Western world. So we're going to share something. We're going to go to a little video. This is a professor from the University of Chicago, from my recollection. This is a man that I've been watching for a while. And, not just this man, but looking at others who are criticizing what it is that America are trying to do right across the Western world. They're trying to make society, they're trying to make the world in their image, and it's not working too well. It is causing huge detriment right around the globe. And, well, you make up your own mind. I'll show you what it is that I'm talking about, and then we'll go from there, let's just say. So here we go. We're going to share a screen, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. Thanks all for coming out to hear me talk. The subject I want to talk about is the causes and consequences of the Ukraine crisis, which of course has been in the news in a really big way since February 2014. And indeed, there was a big story on the civil war in eastern Ukraine in the newspapers this morning. The outline I'd like to follow is I'd just like to make a number of preliminary comments to give you some background on this crisis. Then I'd like to give you my thinking on what caused the crisis. Then tell you why I think the conventional wisdom is wrong. talk a little bit about the West's response so far to the crisis, which is just, in my opinion, making a bad situation worse, and tell you what I think should be done, and then finally wrap up with some discussion of the consequences. So let me start with some preliminary comments. First, with regard to America's core strategic interests. For me, core strategic interests are areas of the world where you're willing to fight and die. And in my opinion, outside of the Western Hemisphere, which is of enormous strategic importance to us, there are only 3 areas of the world that really matter. 1 is Europe, 2 is Northeast Asia, and 3 is the Persian Gulf. And it's very important to understand that since this country got its independence in 1783, Europe has been the most important area of the world. Even though the Japanese attacked us at Pearl Harbor, we had a Europe first policy going into the war, and we had a Europe first policy throughout the war. And it's in large part because the great powers in Europe are more important than the great powers in Northeast Asia over time. Of course, the Persian Gulf was an important area because that's where the oil is, and oil is a critical resource that matters greatly in the international system. So those are the 3 most important areas outside the Western Hemisphere. And again, since the beginning of this country, Europe has been number 1. You want to understand that we're undergoing a fundamental shift of great importance. Asia, because of the rise of China, is going to be the most important area of the world for the United States. The Persian Gulf, because it's inextricably linked with Asia, oil flowing to India, oil flowing to China, the Persian Gulf will be number 2. And Europe will be a distant 3. We're basically leaving Europe in the rearview mirror. And of course, you want to keep this in mind because the Ukraine crisis is in Europe and it involves NATO. Just how to think about the geography of Europe. This is a simple, if not simplistic way of thinking about it, but here's a map. You can see where Ukraine is, you can see where Poland is, you can see where Russia is. The way I think about European security is there's France, Germany, Poland, Ukraine, and Russia. Of course, we're moving from west to east. These are the big kahunas. These are the big countries that matter. And of course, the 2 countries that matter the most historically are Germany and Russia, or for most of the 20th century, Germany and the Soviet Union. And I put them in red because, as you well know, both Germany and the Soviet Union fought bitter wars in Poland, in Ukraine, and we could add in Belarus as well, if need be. But as we go along here, you want to keep in mind that Ukraine is right next to Russia, and Poland is right next to Ukraine. And then out further west is Germany and France. Take this a step further. This is the ethnic breakdown of Ukraine. I'm going to show you a number of maps, all of which are designed to show you that Ukraine is a badly divided country, and what's taking place inside Ukraine today is in good part a civil war. And to that extent, it doesn't have that much to do with what the Russians or the West are doing there. And as you can see in red are mostly Ukrainian-speaking people. And then as you move further east, you're talking about lots of Russians and certainly lots of Russian speakers. This is the Ukraine election of 2004. This is the election in the wake of the famous Orange Revolution, which I'll talk more about.
So people, the reason why that I wanted to show you that, and I'm going to remove it from the screen and I'm going to move on to something else. We all know that there's a war in Ukraine right now, and you know, some people, you would hear it on the media that it's Russia aggressed against Ukraine. Now, we're not here to say that they didn't, because they did. That is an absolute fact that Russia did aggress against Ukraine. But in the background, there is the drive for globalization. There is the NATO expansionism. There also is EU expansionism, and it's been pushed by America. And remember what I said at the start, where America want to make the world in their image. And whatever, you know, who remembers the Iraq crisis there not too long ago, Afghanistan. Who remembers Afghanistan, where they eventually, the Americans, they made an absolute mess of it. They had to pull out. They had to pull out because they failed in turning that society into people that believed that there was more than a man and a woman, to people that would believe that there's 101 different genders, to people that would believe that just because that you say that you're a woman. If I look, I'm a woman. Can you see that? Just because I say that doesn't mean to say that that's true. I mean, we live in a society today that has been dictated to by this hegemon, American-driven liberal hegemony. That the dictation is that if John says that he's a woman, well, then he's a woman. He doesn't have to have any biological traits of a woman. He can just say that, and that's the case. So what they have done is that they've replaced biology with theory. And what they're doing now is they're now teaching your children that in schools, and we can all pretend that that's the way things are if we want, but it doesn't make it right, and it's having huge detriment within our society. And we're going to go on to speak about the detriment that it's having from within our society today, and how that it is that our leaders, our politicians, these people that are being set up as community leaders from within our community, so-called loyalists. And remember those words, because we're going to get to it in the next few weeks, and we're going to do a huge expose on how that it is that the Irish government are paying so-called loyalists to destroy loyalism from within. And we now have proof of that actually happening, and we will be able to show you that in the next few weeks. But what is the root cause of this in the background? The root cause is that, well, who remembers the exposing the CIA interference in Northern Ireland since 1984, which we done here at Restore UK at the early part of the year? You see, in that expose, we talked to a lot of people, and one of those people that we talked to, well, he was part of the security forces here in Northern Ireland, which has a huge concern with reference that there are terrorists that are being made to look like angels, whilst that the RUC of that day, whilst that the UDR, whilst that the law enforcers, well, they would look like the bad guys. How that it is that history is being rewritten, and what is causing that? It is also this American-driven, so-called liberal hegemony, which is doing this. And then you look at that Ukraine war, and you see that the expansionism of globalization, looking to turn Ukraine into a society in where that, well, there's 101 different genders that they want to go into schools and indoctrinate the children from within that country. And there are a lot of people in that country that don't want that trash being infesting their children's minds. And yet these people, they continue to buy people from within our society who are only too willing to push this bunkers, to push this nonsense on society's minds, and which is most unforgivable, to push that into primary schools and to teach children, well, they can have sex changes from they're very, very young, destroying those children's lives, not only their minds, making irreversible decisions. These people, these, I'm going to say, I'm trying to find words for these people, but these, so-called liberals who are living in an anything goes society and are being directed by anything which comes out of America. Now, this isn't a new phenomenon. This has been happening for many, many years. Who remembers the civil rights movement back in the 1969 era here in Northern Ireland, in where that, well, you've heard it yourself, that the poor, oppressed Catholics, they didn't have good housing. Here, that happened in unionist areas also. But given that they were oppressed, and given that they were looking at what was happening at that time in America with the civil rights marches, well, you see, that had overspill, and that had consequences in our society, which set in motion something that was to last for many, many years, in where that many, many people from within our society would lose their lives, causing huge detriment, dividing society, causing people to look upon each other as enemies. And again, that is infestation of this American nonsense that keeps coming down our line. So what I want to try to do this evening is I want to try to show you what it is that's happening today and why that it is that all of this bunker stuff is coming down your line, my line, and to the despair of many, many parents whenever that they see what it is that their children is being taught in schools. Take, for example, in Scotland, in where right now that school children are being asked, have they ever had anal sex? Do you know, this is bunkers. This is what would have been known from within our society as unlawful carnal knowledge of a minor, if anyone was in receipt of that information other than, say, a parent, or by request of the parent, where the parent would sign a form and allow an expert to maybe talk to that child if there had been some sort of problem that was caused that or suspected that was forced upon that child. This is what's happening from within your schools today and being pushed into your schools, and it's coming down the line by way of this American-driven liberal hegemony. Now, talking about this type of thing on social media, I could find myself banned completely from social media, but sometimes some things are worth standing up for. Sometimes some things are worth standing up against. And when these people are destroying the fabric of your society, of my society, well, it follows that, well, what does they say? When tyranny becomes law, standing against that tyranny becomes duty. And I believe that it's my duty. I believe that it's your duty. I believe that it's every right-minded individual's duty to stand against this nonsense, this bunkers that will, in fact, infest the minds of children and destroy society for the rest of its existence. So what I want to do is that I now want to move on to this same professor talking about what this liberal hegemony actually is, and what it is that America, by their theory, what it is that they aim to do by manipulating your society and my society to the point whereby that it's unrecognizable. It's certainly unrecognizable to anyone over the age of, let's say, maybe 35. It certainly wasn't the principles and the things that your parents, my parents, and their parents would have been teaching down throughout the years. The tried and the tested methods passed down throughout the years, which keeps society, I'm going to say, stable, which keeps it in a stable state. So if you just bear with me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share something else by way of a video file, and I want people to watch this and leave your messages in the live chat. Tag people into the live chat, and well, let's get as many people here as humanly possible. And even if those people aren't available right now, still tag them into the live chat, still give us a like, still give us a love, still give us a share, and leave your messages in that live chat and tell us exactly what you think. Tell us if it disgusts you. Tell us if you're fed up with it, if you've had enough of it. Tell us if you're suffering from the cost of living crisis driven by these Americans in their quest to dominate the world and to force this American-driven liberal hegemony on the rest of the world. It's time that we stood up and says to these people and tell these people, it's time that we tell our politicians that we want no part in this, that this is a stable society and this society should not be infected in such a way. So I'm going to share another little video file, if you bear with me, and I want you to watch this very, very carefully. So it takes a wee while to do it this way, but if you just bear with me. Sorry, this hit the wrong button there. Here we go.
had to change the venue. So thank you very much. I hope I can deliver a lecture that makes it all worth it. As Nuno said, tonight I'm going to talk about the false promise of liberal hegemony. For those of you who were here on Monday night, you know that what I did was I really talked about liberalism and didn't say much about foreign policy. This is the first of my two talks tonight and tomorrow night that really do with the international dimension of liberalism. The first talk was all about just sort of getting at the essence of liberalism. The outline for tonight is that I'd like to start by defining what I mean by liberal hegemony and explain to you why states pursue it. Then I'd like to explain when states pursue liberal hegemony. So the first part will deal with the why. The second part is when. And then in the third part, I want to talk about what it looks like in practice. And then finally explain to you why it is prone to fail disastrously. So the first part of the talk is on the subject of what is liberal hegemony. Just a few words about its policy relevance. Then what I really want to do is talk about its theoretical underpinnings. With regard to its policy relevance, I think almost everybody who studies IR in my world agrees that it has been the foreign policy of the United States since the Cold War ended, that the United States has pursued liberal hegemony. And for those who have any doubts, the argument usually goes that it wasn't really true up until 2001, but clearly it was true after 2001. But most people agree that during the entire Cold War period, it has been the foreign policy of choice. And moreover, it's a foreign policy that the American elite loves. As I said the other night, we sometimes refer to the American foreign policy establishment as the blob. This is Ben Rhodes' terminology, Ben Rhodes, who worked for Barack Obama. The blob is deeply wedded to liberal hegemony, and it includes both Republicans and Democrats. There's this myth in the land, mainly purveyed by Republicans, that Republicans and Democrats have very different views on foreign policy. This is poppycock. It's Tweedledee and Tweedledum, right? And they love their liberal hegemony. Donald Trump is an exception. He ran against liberal hegemony, and where he ends up remains to be seen. But he ran against it. Now, a little bit about the analytical foundation of liberal hegemony, and this grows out of my discussion from last time. As I said to you, liberalism is at its root a political philosophy that focuses on the individual and places enormous emphasis on inalienable rights. Inalienable meaning they apply to everybody and they cannot be taken away. And the point I made last time, and I'd like to emphasize again tonight, is when you marry that sense of individualism with inalienable rights, you get a universalist ideology, right? And the point I made last time and make again here is that liberal hegemony, or even liberalism, when it applies to foreign policy, has this universalist dimension that is of great importance. And what it means in terms of a broad foreign policy goal is that you quickly become consumed with spreading liberal democracy across the globe. That emphasis on inalienable rights, which leads to universalism, produces a foreign policy that emphasizes the spreading of liberal democracy. And there are three reasons for that. This really gets to the heart and soul of the argument, and I'll unpack them all, but just put them up in laundry list fashion right now. You want to spread democracy for three reasons. One, to protect human rights across the world. Two, to cause international peace. And three, to protect liberalism at home.
And again, all of this grows out of the emphasis on individualism and inalienable rights, as I'll make clear as we go along here. So let me start by talking about protecting human rights across the world. The basic argument is that people who live in a far-off country are no different than people who live in your country. Borders actually don't matter very much. Rights are of great importance, and everybody has rights. And when the rights of non-Americans are being threatened, Americans have a responsibility to do everything they can to protect those people whose rights are being.
I'm sorry about that, people. I made a little mistake. But just to sort of go on, and I'm getting back up onto this video again.
The outline at Columbia University. It's basically saying non-liberal governments, no matter what they do, non-liberal governments.
Just to provide a little bit of commentary on that is that, you know, this professor that I've been watching for quite some time, and he really talks about in this video, he talks about that the false promise of liberal hegemony, and how that it is that what starts off to be, pushing democracy, the promise of democracy, the promise of inalienable rights, which in some societies around the world which didn't actually have that, well, it seems like a good thing. It seems like something that people want to buy into. But that American-driven liberal hegemony, like many things in our world, let's just, for example, take, the art world. You know, the art world, well, we can all picture what art used to be. Art used to be things like, you know, the Mona Lisa. You know, I'm just thinking of that painting where someone would have spent a lot of time and they would have painted this masterpiece, and that would have been art. Now, what is it that passes for art today? And we'll tell you why that happens, is that what passes for art today, well, if you went to maybe Tate Modern in London, and, you know, a few years ago, you would have found maybe a bed in a room, the depiction of someone's room, which had been wrecked and someone hadn't made their bed. And there might have been empty beer tins lying on the floor, or maybe a pizza box or whatever. And the room was wrecked, and they were passing this off as modern art. And wasn't there the circumstances in where, and I can't remember who the so-called artist was, but wasn't there the circumstances in where that someone had produced a medicine cabinet with some white tablets of all different bottles, different sizes, different fills of medicine, little tablets, white tablets in this medicine cabinet, and didn't it sell for something like 6 million quid? And then this man, I can't remember his name, but didn't he make another medicine cabinet, and he says that this is going to be his best work of art yet, and that didn't it sell for 12 million, double the price of the first one? Now, what was the difference between those two medicine cabinets, you ask? The difference was that one had white pills, the other one had colored pills. And, you know, that's how that it is in particular worlds, is that what starts off to be what is seen by everyone as something nice, something that is artistic, something which is produced by a talented person. Well, in the drive to have something more than the last person, or to do better than the last person, soon what happens is that in particular types of worlds, they cross the line. They go beyond the line. They go way beyond the line. They don't even know where the line is anymore. And before you know it, what becomes art and what has become art, well, a lot of people look at it and they laugh at it and they think, well, you know, if that's art, I mean, my 2-year-old could do better than that. And this is what happens in particular types of worlds. And, you know, then again, we look at the fashion industry and, you know, how that it is that maybe, you know, nice dresses for ladies would be good, and, you know, and we could look at them and say, well, that's fashion. Or maybe nice clothes for men, and we could say that that's fashion. But then we see how that it is even the fashion world have moved beyond the line, crossed the line, went way beyond the line, and now they don't even know where the line is anymore. And who remembers even the model industry, in where that a traditional model would be someone with a nice face, a nice looking lady, a nice looking gent, dressed in nice clothes. And now that some of those models that you see that are trotting the catwalks, well, they look like death warmed up. They look like ghosts. They look like they need a feed. The clothes that they're wearing, well, they leave a lot to be desired. So what I'm showing you is that in any type of world, what happens is that once it's passed out amongst the masses, in the drive to further what it is that has started, well, there's innovation, and sometimes that innovation, it crosses the line, it goes beyond the line, it goes way beyond the line, and before you know it, well, it's beyond anyone's comprehension of what normality actually is. And this is what's happened to this American driven liberal hegemony, in where, who remembers the song from the 1980s, was it, or the early 90s? Remember, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Holly Johnston, in where that Americano, blue jeans and chinos, in the land of the free, you can be what you want to be. And that was in a song even back from, my childhood when I was maybe growing up. And that explains America, in where that they were being told that the American dream, you can be what you want to be. And in that world, well, people actually would have crossed lines also. And before you know it, we've started off that there was a man and a woman and biologically born and shown to be, well, now what they're saying in America is, and they're now saying that here, is that they're saying, well, the doctor has a guess at what you are when you're whenever you're born. I mean, he can look at your genitalia and he guesses what you are. I mean, if you've got a little willy, he guesses, is what they're telling you, that person's a man, or he guesses that person's a woman based on what the biological makeup of that person is. And in America, I just believe that they've crossed the line, they've went beyond the line, they don't even know where the line is anymore, and they're not even happy that there's a man and there's a woman, and now there's 101 different genders. Now that they're saying that doctors are guessing, they're not actually identifying what it is that children are in at birth. And then they're now teaching this stuff in schools, and it has infected the entire Western world. And in theory, what American-driven liberal hegemony means is to make the world in America's image. And if they've crossed the line, which they have, if they have went way beyond the line to the point whereby that they don't even know where the line is anymore, which they have, well, they expect the rest of the world to follow them, even when it means to the detriment of the rest of the world. In 2008, there was a crash, a property market crash right around the world. Now, that was contagion, which had started in America, and it was called the subprime market. I mean, I was involved in that as a man who would have invested into property. And, and what happened was that the Americans, well, they were selling loans to people that couldn't afford to pay the loans back. They were putting mortgages onto properties with people that had never worked before. I mean, I remember a story on our news of a lady in Andersonstown that had never worked a day in her life, and that the mortgage broker, he got her a mortgage on this thing called a self-certification mortgage, and she could never afford to pay that mortgage back, and she got a lot of money out of it. And what the Americans actually did with all of those loans that could never be paid back, which they encouraged under their rules and regulations, well, what they did was they sold those loans off to other banks, infecting other banks right around the world, causing a financial collapse, causing a financial crisis, which our world has never to this day actually got out of. So what I'm driving to show you here is that sometimes, because someone puts their hand in the fire, doesn't mean to say the rest of us have to do it. Doesn't mean to say that if they say that there's 101 different genders, if they say that a doctor guesses the whether a child is a male or a female at birth, if they say that the doctor's only guessing according to the genitalia that the doctor would see. Well, it doesn't mean to say that because they do it, well, we have to do it. And it's time the rest of the Western world told these nut jobs, these lunatics, that look, we're not playing this game anymore. And and there's lots of people in our society that has actually grabbed onto this nonsense, and is actually making huge living off it. They're being paid huge sums of money to be gatekeepers, to be agents of influence, to be steering society, to be indoctrinating your children, and all because of this American-driven liberal hegemony. Basically, what it means is the Americans are wanting to make the world in their image. And look, that's just a lesson on why that it is that certain things are happening from within our society. And we don't have time to watch that entire screen, but in a nutshell, that's what it means. Now, what I want now to do is that I want to go on to another subject. This is another subject that we will be doing from Restore UK. We will be doing a documentary on this. We will be scratching the surface. We will be finding out the depths to which this has infested our society, to the depths to which that it is continuously pushed into schools. And we want to do documentaries like this. And if we're thrown off Facebook, well, so be it, because we'll get our own platform. We'll do these documentaries anyway. And, we'll use other channels which other people use. And we're doing this for a reason. We're doing this because that we care, because that we care about society, because that we care about our children, because that we do not want to see our children sexualized at kindergarten, because we would like to see children growing up the way that we grew up, doing children's things, worrying about the world whenever it becomes time, not being turned into political activists, not being, cajoled into worrying about the things that only adults should be worrying about. And who do we blame for all of this? Well, we blame these Americans. In the land of the free, you can be what you want to be. And what happens there? Well, what they want to do is that they want to make the world in their image. And then lately, we've all seen the stories of I'm going to choose these words, or choose these words very, very specifically. I'm going to use these words as on a play on words, let's just say. And right now, what you see happening before your very eyes, you see, and I'm choosing these words very specifically. Are you ready for it? You see the drags in society being pushed into classrooms, being pushed into, telling children stories. Now, not every drag artist would agree with this. In fact, there in the video that I'm about to show you, there is a drag artist that says, what would you want to do that with children for? Some of these drag artists have less than savory names, and you're going to learn this in this video. And yet there are some from within our society, and I'll tell you who from within the Northern Ireland Society. Naomi Long was defending this just a few weeks ago. Naomi Long was saying that she has a friend that is a drag artist, and it's quite okay for this sexual innuendo to be pushed down children's throats at a kindergarten age. This is the type, and that's our Justice Minister, by the way. That is our Justice Minister. And people really needs to stand up against this, because we don't want to see our society turned into a cesspit of corruption. As a person, I have to stand against this. And why? Because I care about the society that is going to be left to my children, my children's children, and future generations. I want to see a society in where that well, if they say that diversity is the way or the order of the day, well, so be it. Let anyone be who they want to be. Drags, go and fill your boots. You know, anyone that is a man that wants to call themselves a woman, go and fill your boots. Do what it is that you want to do, but don't force it down anyone else's throat. Don't seek to indoctrinate our children with this nonsense that there is 101 different genders, that the doctor would, guess what birth you are, even if you've got a little, a little male member. The doctor is only guessing when he sees that. He's guessing that you're a male. He's not actually scientifically stating, according to all the, all the medical training that he's had. He's not saying specifically, well, this is a little male, this is a boy, or this is a girl. What type of nonsense are these people pushing into your society? And if we do not nip this in the bud, it's only going to get worse. And we have seen it progressively, quote unquote, getting worse day by day by day by day. This is what we've seen happening before our very eyes. If you allow these people to go on, well, we're going to be living in a society where black means white, where truth means lies, where science, well, it's not the science. The science says something else. When biology, well, it can be replaced with, well, some sort of gender theory. All of these things where they have crossed the line with, that they have went way beyond the line with. And if we do not stand up against this as a society, well, what's going to happen is that we're going to be living in a cesspit, an absolute cesspit, in where that no child will have any chance of survival in the near future. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to share a video, and I want people to watch this video. Now, I hope that you haven't seen this video. This video is by Lawrence Fox and the Reclaim Party. And what they're focusing on in this video is these drags in society being invited into schools by activists in schools, by activists who are politicians, by these people that are so-called liberals, that are, well, they're in the woke brigade. Their agenda is wokeism. And what they're trying to do is that because that they have some sort of mental illness, they're now trying to ensure that everyone is infected and infested by the same mental illness that these people have. So I'm going to play this video by Reclaim the Media, they call it. As a guy called Lawrence Fox, the Reclaim Party. We'll play this and we'll come back at the end. And I want you to watch this very, very carefully. And we'll come back at the end for some commentary. And also, if you leave your messages in the live chat, if you tell us what you think, if you tell us how vile that you think this is, if you tell us, if you're a parent, is this what you want for your children? If you tell us that if you're a grandmother or a grandfather, is this what you want for your children and your children's children and society in general? And this is only a few nut jobs that is destroying the fabric of society for every one of us, for each and every one, and infecting children's minds in Southern Ireland right now. There is a thing called civic, social, political, civic, social, political, can't remember the end of it. But what they're doing is they're teaching children in the South. They're doing it here too, but they're teaching children in the South to be political activists. To be climate change activists. That's what they're not allowing children to be children anymore. And it is disgusting to the core. Absolutely disgusting to the core. I see that someone says that they don't like Lawrence Fox. Look, this isn't about Lawrence Fox. What this is about, and I understand, Jill, a lot of people have that in mind, but it's about this video. It's about what they've uncovered. It's about the stats in this video. It's about people that are talking out against this. And isn't it time that we as a society stood against this and returned our society, restored our society, Restore UK, to a society in where that people can be what they want to be, but on the proviso that they don't force their twisted ideology down children's throats or anyone else's throats for that mind. You know, your culture, your belief, your way of life, your lifestyle choices. Well, that should be between you and your fellow enthusiasts, and it should never be permitted to interfere in anyone else's way of life. And we are right now living in a society in where that you know, our education system is infested and infected with this. You know, every area of society which is meant to be there to serve and protect us. Well, all of those areas, including law enforcement, including the judiciary, where people are getting a hierarchy of rights because they belong to this group, that group, the other group. Well, according to Naomi Long, that if you're a man of my age, you're stale, you're male, and you're pale, which means that I'm stale. What does that mean? Does that mean that I'm old? Is that ageism? If I'm male, is that sexism? Am I not allowed to exist? And am I not allowed to have a voice in society? According to Naomi Long. And I'm pale. What's that mean? I'm not black. So I'm white. And am I white and male and privileged? Is that what these people are? Bunkers. These people have lost the plot, and these people need to be stewed against. So playing this video as we go. Just bear with me.
Not so long ago, our children went to school to be educated, not indoctrinated. Reading, writing, arithmetic. When it came to the thorny topic of sex education, it was traditionally a teacher's job to equip children with the basics to allow them to stay safe from unwanted pregnancies, sexually transmitted diseases, and sexual predators. And whilst most parents were happy to leave the birds and the beads stuff to the teachers, sex education wasn't compulsory, leaving some parents the choice to opt out. However, in the new hypersexualized culture of 21st century Britain, a perfect storm of fear and opportunity has arisen. A new wave of activists and sex-positive liberals saw an opportunity not just to educate and inform children, but to sexualize and radicalize them. Unbeknownst to many parents, our children's education has become riddled with unproven, unscientific, radical sexual identity politics. The declaration of pronouns is enforced with rigor. Rejecting biology in favor of gender theory is the new normal. Exposing ever younger children to complicated ideas about sexuality is becoming an imperative. In particular, PSHE, or Personal, Social, Health and Economic Education, which includes relationships and sex education, RSE, has become a horror show.
Sex education is a good example. That used to happen in secondary school. The Conservative government, for some reason, pushed through RSE as a replacement for sex ed, and now we have relationships and sex ed all into one bracket, which means it's being pushed further down into primary school. We now have primary kids being taught about masturbation, which I think is inappropriate, and I think most parents would. But this is the slippery slope, isn't it? There's no age appropriateness anymore.
Drag queens, whose very names are often laden with sexual innuendo, are routinely invited to read books to primary-age school children. This is Miss Beaver, one of the performers involved in Bristol's drag queen story time, and in Paisley, a drag queen named Ujob was invited to read books at Glencoates Primary School. Following a parental outcry when Flojob's highly sexualized social media history was uncovered, SNP MP Mari Black, who was with Flowjob at the school event, lashed out, accusing those with concerns of, yes, you guessed it, homophobia. Mari said she completely applauded the school for putting on such a great day. Last summer in London, a Labour council invited a rainbow dildo butt monkey to host children's reading groups in libraries. Drag Queen Story Hour, which does exactly what it says on the tin, has now become a huge growth industry in our schools. However, the apprehension of having drag queens perform to young children is also shared by some drag queens themselves.
I have no idea why you want drag queens to read books to your children. I have no idea. A drag queen performs in a nightclub for adults. There is a lot of filth that goes on, a lot of sexual stuff that goes on. And backstage, there's a lot of nudity, sex, and drugs. Okay? So I don't think that this is an avenue you would want your child to explore. Would you want a stripper or a porn star to influence your child?
And then you just move your bum up and down like that. And that's twerking.
As the outcry about drag queens and schools grows, efforts by the left and the educational establishment to get them into schools will become increasingly aggressive, taking the lead from New York City, where Mayor Eric Adams pledged to continue the practice even after it was revealed the city had spent over $200,000 on drag queen events for young children. These extracurricular activities are bad enough, but most worrying of all is the British curriculum itself, which now teaches children as young as 4 about masturbation, consent, and the chilling concept of good secrets.
So this education comes from the World Health Organization, United Nations, CICAS, the Kinsey Institute. The first thing that startled me, made me aware, was the early childhood masturbation from age 0 to 4. That you know, I'm a criminologist, so child sex abuse and exploitation are my fields. So I want to know who is saying children are sexual from birth, who is saying children can masturbate from birth. Straight off for the beginning, for the 4-year-olds, they were actually learning about masturbation, which is now is spoken about, is called self-stimulation. So we discovered this in 241 schools in England. The self-stimulation has a barrier to disclosure, which means it prevents children from disclosing abuse. Basically, it programs all children in the whole of the country away from what we call a non-verbal disclosure. As it goes on, we look in children are taught to behave sexually in a non-offensive way, whatever that means. They to label body parts. It is not head, shoulders, knees and toes. It is nipples, scrotum and vulva.
In secondary schools, the menu is even more X-rated, as pupils are taught about anal sex, facial ejaculation and bondage.
Many parents are starting to ask questions at school, and the schools are saying we cannot share the resources with you because they are under copyright and we're not privileged to share them with people. First of all, that's a lie. To share the resources with a parent is perfectly acceptable, and any school that uses copyright as an excuse not to show parents what they're teaching their children should be questioned further.
Each and every parent, if they go into their school and they ask to see the PSHE or the trans inclusion across the curriculum, they will find their schools to be evasive. And that should frighten each and every one of us. Because if you don't know what your children are being taught, how on earth can you say that you are a committed parent to the safety and well-being of your children? You just can't.
But the area of greatest concern should be the now widespread practice of schools teaching children about LGBTQ+ and trans ideologies.
As children of all are told that you don't have to be a boy, you don't have to be a girl. Doctors guess your gender at birth.
These ideas are not in schools to be discussed. They are imposed, and any dissent is not tolerated.
You're saying that what's wrong with the website is that there are more than one gender in this country.
That's your opinion.
That is my opinion, and that is an opinion which is acceptable in the school. I'm afraid yours, which you're saying that there's no such thing as anyone other than male or female, is not
Scientifically,
inclusive.
there are just 2 genders. depending on what
I get
agenda
that. But you're choosing to make an issue of this because I said, are you really going to do it? That was your opportunity to keep quiet.
I believe we are teaching children to question fundamental truths like biological sex. And then what they do with that is they then have to fill in the gaps. So if they don't adhere to the stereotype of being a boy or being a girl, which is something that gender neutral parenting used to be, that your kid, your boy or girl could have a pushchair if they wanted. Well, what it now means is it means that biological sex is not particularly important. It's just your likes and dislikes and what you like to wear that is important. So that is being taught in schools. In fact, not just taught, that is throughout the ethos of a school. So that will be in the canteen. They don't call your kids boys and girls anymore. That will be the receptionist. That will be all the support staff. Every single person in that school will have been indoctrinated themselves into then indoctrinating your children.
A common sense parent might ask, why are we teaching all of our children about such a tiny minority in society? After all, there isn't even any reliable data on how many trans people there are in Britain.
It's really a two-pronged approach with critical race theory, which has been a big thing over here in the States, and really tears down kids. It teaches them that they are bad, especially the white kids, that you are bad, you're inherently white supremacist. And then the gender ideology is introduced and kids are presented with a wide assortment of different oppressed identities that they can step into. So, you know, the worst thing in the world to be is a cis white boy. Even a cis white girl isn't looked highly on. But if you can step into, you know, a trans boy, if you're a girl and you can become a trans boy, all of a sudden you're celebrated. So it's almost like this conversion moment that teachers and school administrators are kind of guiding kids through, with the goal to help these kids become critically conscious, which is another word for woke. So it's really about, kind of dividing these kids from their parental influence, setting up this division between the parents and the children in order to make them little political activists for their progressive causes.
Rather than liberating individuals, tragically, data shows that trans people are among the least satisfied of citizens in the Western world. Whilst there is a question mark over their methodology, small selective surveys of the LGBT community have claimed that 40% of trans youths have attempted suicide. Trans activists might argue that this is because of society's non-acceptance of transgender individuals. Critics might argue fears of suicide are revved up to terrify parents and teachers to further their agendas. Regardless, those with genuine gender dysphoria deserve our support and our love. But what if the lifestyle itself is the cause of this depression? Which begs the question, why are we encouraging children to adopt the lifestyle of those with the lowest life satisfaction scores in all of society? The figures speak for themselves. There has been an explosion in trans-identifying children in British schools in the last few years. There is a term for this, social contagion, and there are consequences.
So we've had one example where a 7-year-old has come out of school. He said to his mother, I can be a girl if I want. And nothing more was thought about it until 2 weeks later when they discovered the teacher was actually in that class explaining her own child's transgender journey to the 7 and 8-year-olds.
Add to that, painful testimony from those who have chosen to reverse their sex change procedures demonstrates that buyer's regret is a very real and very dangerous phenomenon in the trans community. Yet from within the trans community, these accounts are dismissed or even met with rage. None of this stops Britain's most activist councils pushing forward, forcing trans ideology on our children, even though parents are yet to be consulted and the government has repeatedly voiced its concerns.
And I do want to raise what I think is a very dangerous potential safeguarding issue that we're seeing in this area right now, where schools are inviting outside organisations into school to provide counselling type services and using their materials, groups like Stonewall and Mermaids, who are teaching what I think are dangerous and contested extreme ideologies that don't have a basis in science to our children, and it's contrary to DfE guidance.
Later this year, Brighton Council is set to roll out its Trans Inclusion Schools Toolkit, which allows biological schoolboys into girls' changing rooms, boys into girls' toilets, and boys onto girls' residential trips. Activists are looking to Brighton as a pilot curriculum, with an eye to a nationwide rollout as their next goal, unless we parents take a stand. You might not want any of this. You might not even be aware that this is going on, but it is, and it is coming to a school near you.
Parents have no idea what's being fed to their kids in school. And I think not only are they being fed lies, which is that boys can be girls and girls can be boys, and their safeguarding being obliterated. So it means that any of their daughters can be in a changing room, and if that boy says he's a girl, he is then in that changing room, and schools are so gutless about it. That's dangerous in itself, the actual kind of things that will happen and are being taught. But broader than that, we have to think about what we're doing to children when we gaslight them and groom them by lying to them and allowing them or force feeding them the acceptance of lies as truth. And I think that does something fundamentally breaking to the soul and to the resilience and mental health of kids. And we talk about mental health all the time, but actually telling children to lie, how is that any better than the kids right the way across countries that we may scorn at, like China or North Korea, when they're also being force-fed government propaganda?
Some of it's activism in that the teachers want to shovel their agenda or push their agenda, but some of it is just misguided attempts at doing good. And some of the teachers just literally don't know what they're teaching and download the resources off the internet and go with it because they feel like they have to address the subjects. So it's across the spectrum of difference of opinion there. But the issue is that when these teachers are pushing it, it's often not some people believe this, other people believe that. It's like, this is the new truth. And they want to smash down normativity, as they'll call it, whether that's heterosexuality or whether that's white normativity. It doesn't matter what it is.
A lot of these ideas were introduced into education from a guy by the name of Paulo Freire, who was he's famous for writing a book called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And his whole philosophy was based on the idea that teaching and education is an inherently political act. So he saw great value in education for achieving political ends. The whole point of education was to awaken a critical consciousness in students. And so his philosophy is like one of the most cited in education schools. And it is gone, throughout the US and I'm sure around the world with that explicit purpose. And so a lot of these educators are trying to kind of sever that bond between the parents and the student, and between the past and the student, so that they can inject their ideology and their worldview, so that these kids will become little activists for their progressive causes.
Critical theory, gender theory, critical race theory, queer theory, all of these really, really contested ideologies are being shoveled down kids' throats through PSHE, RSE, citizenship, and the likes.
Because make no mistake, business is booming for the LGBT and trans education sector. Brighton's toolkit was formed with the help of trans activist charity, the All Sorts Youth Project, which last year had an income of £509,000, including a £287,400 grant of government money. That means you, the taxpayer, are funding a trans lobby group that wants to change your child's curriculum to include their political activism. All Sorts host trans and gender exploring groups for children as young as 5, parents being offered a separate space in the building. Their activism goes far beyond gender ideology. Their terminology guides are littered with radical critical race theory definitions of terms like whiteness, race, and cultural appropriation. Last year, trans activist group Mermaids had a gross profit of £1.85 million. The Proud Trust, an educational resource that describes itself as the home of LGBT youth, received £218,000 from you, the taxpayer, last year alone. They flog information packs to schools at £75 a go, and they are eagerly hoovered up by activist teachers. Twinkle, a Sheffield-based publishing company, last year had a turnover of 42.6 million, offering hundreds of LGBTQ+ resources, including trans flag bunting for classrooms and pansexual pride posters. We are sleepwalking into a society where woke activists posing as teachers are grooming an entire generation into degeneracy, sexualization, and depressing lifestyles.
This is an attack on the family unit. Children are being encouraged to override their parents every way they can. They're being empowered beyond capacity. They're being given options that they don't understand. So they're being targeted by these flashy, fashionable trends that's going on, and they are falling for that. You know, we've got young girls that they want their breasts removed. They're binding their breasts. They want them removed. We've got young boys who want their testicles removed. This isn't a horror story. This is a reality, and this is where we're headed.
You know, people say, oh, they need to learn that there are gay people, etc., etc. Well, they'll learn that in life, as we always have done. It's not a school's place to say this is right, this is not right. That's a parent's job. The parent's role is to pass on values. Schools should be teaching the 3 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic. They should pass on knowledge, nothing more.
The nuclear family has been seen as an obstacle to this kind of Marxist society that they want to envision. And so a lot of the sexual revolution has been about tearing down the nuclear family. You know, they want us in kind of a Brave New World state where, you know, sexuality is just a transaction between meat machines. And so if they can cause kids to think differently, think in that way about sexuality, they're less likely to, you know, form a nuclear family unit. And then that, you know, vehicle for perpetuating the oppression is kind of eroded in that way.
So what can we do to protect our children and reclaim their learning, returning schools to places of education instead of indoctrination? Accessibility and accountability are key. In 1908, the Children's and Young Persons Act, known then as the Children's Charter, was brought about to protect the most vulnerable in society and enshrined in law a clear distinction between children and adults. I propose something similar to protect the children of today, the Reclaim Party's own Children's Charter. Number 1, school governorships are to become elected positions whose meetings are held in public where any member of the school community can attend and speak. 2, the immediate removal of political activist groups targeting children such as Stonewall and Mermaids from all British schools and teacher training programs. 3, the withholding of taxpayer money from said groups and the defunding of councils who insist on imposing these divisive and contested ideologies. 4, an end to the teaching of critical race theory and critical gender theory as fact, and a recognition that these new and controversial ideas should be discussed by, but not imposed upon children. 5, sex and relationship education to return to secondary, not primary school. 6, the publication of all teaching materials pertaining to PSHE in education, granting parents the option to opt out if they feel it may be age inappropriate for their children. 7, the banning of all political flags from school outside of the context of the classroom for the purpose of learning and discussion, and yes, that does include the pride flag. Finally, and I can't believe I actually have to say this, no more drag and adult performers in schools. These are places of learning, not nightclubs. Thank you.
So there you go. If you'll have watched that, I'm absolutely sure you'll have got your eyes opened to the. Sorry, let me just stop that. I'm sure you'll have got your eyes open to the things that are happening right now before your very eyes. And this is because that what we have is that we have political parties who are political activists, who are activists in this new what is it what we want to call the thing that they're in. They're in a cult. That's what it is. They're in a cult. And what they do is they join forces with other cult members right around this world. Just like what I said, if you've been watching this from the start, that the Irish Department for Foreign Affairs are well, they're funding people who are masquerading as loyalists, and they are funding those people to say bad things about the loyalist community. And we have proof of this, and we will be showing this whenever that we complete our research into this matter. And then you have others like, we call them a pan-nationalist front here in Northern Ireland, and that would be made up of Sinn Féin, the SDLP, the Green Party, the Alliance Party, and also some in the UUP. Well, the way that Mugbeedy is trailing those people today, most in the UUP right now. Then we have those people, and what they are doing is that they are teaming together to keep a constitutional changing protocol in place, separating people from Northern Ireland from the rest of the United Kingdom. And I say to people, whenever that these left-wing lunatics are joining forces in order to derail the successes and to destroy the fabric of society and to, well, indoctrinate your children into believing that they should be political activists. We heard in that video that just passed there, is it PSHE is what is being taught in English schools. It sounds like pish to me, and I make no apologies for saying that, pish. And in the Southern Ireland, they call it down there, they call it civic, social, political education. Civic, social, political education, teaching children from the kindergarten up how to be political activists, how to align themselves with particular political ideologies, how to, well, to view some things in society. I mean, I know, and I got this firsthand from a parent in the South, that they were teaching people at the time, whenever Donald Trump would have been in the White House, that Trump was bad and that Obama was good. Why is it that activists in schools, on the media, in political parties, right across our Western world, why are these activists permitted to destroy the fabric of society in such a way? And again, I'm going to go back to saying, is that your belief, my belief, your belief, your culture, your way of life, your lifestyle choices, they should be between you and your fellow activists or your fellow enthusiasts. They should be between you and whatever it is that you do. Go and fill your boots, but don't try to force your ideology down other people's throats. So your belief, your culture, your way of life, your lifestyle choices, they should be between you and your fellow enthusiasts, and it should never be permitted to interfere in anyone else's way of life. And right now, it is interfere in every aspect of our society, and to the detriment of our politics, to the detriment of our society, to the detriment of thinking, right is wrong, wrong is right, war is peace. It is getting to the point where these children will be so mixed up because of what they're being taught, boys or girls. You have a male member when you're young and the doctor just guesses. The doctor doesn't guess. The doctor was trained to see what a male was, what a female was. Why are we permitting these people to destroy the fabric of society before our very eyes? And, well, we know what they're doing. We can see what they're doing. American-driven liberal hegemony. And in the land of the free, that's what they say. They say that you can be what you want to be. And what happens in America? It used to be that it was 10 years off our shores. Nowadays, because of the social media, it could happen in America yesterday, and tomorrow it'll be here. Who remembers Black Lives Matter? Who remembers that? happened in America where a criminal, well, a police officer done the wrong thing and that criminal ended up dead. And the rest of the Western world was affected by that movement of Black Lives Matter, where they were in London trying to trail down statues, where at the Belfast City Hall there was a girl, a little black girl, shouting about F your Union Jack, trying to stir up tensions in this country. We have had enough of this American driven nonsense, which is destroying the fabric of society, which is causing these circumstances in where that reconciliation in this country can never occur, whilst these I'm going to say where these poosters, POOH poosters, whilst they continue to stir up society, whilst they continue to set people against each other, whilst they continue to indoctrinate the minds of our children, whilst they continue to put their money into particular community groupings, NGOs, non-governmental organizations, to destroy the fabric of your society. And unless we stand up against this en masse, well, I would say that the world that we're going to be living in, well, it won't be the same world for your children, your children's children, your grandchildren that we would have lived in. Yeah, for all the things that happened in Northern Ireland, the troubles. And I believe that they were stirred up also. We've seen how that the CIA were here interfering in Northern Ireland politics from 1984. That's as far back as we can trace it, but way before then. We see how that they sent guns to the terrorists to kill our nearest and our dearest. We see how that they're stirring things up in Ukraine right now, and the only losers in Ukraine are the ordinary people of Ukraine who have been uprooted, pushed out across the world, and are the ones that stay and lose their lives. Well, Ukraine's only going to be a shadow of itself, and all because of these warmongers. Isn't it time that our politicians absolutely stopped playing the ridiculous game which is destroying the fabric of society? Look, people, I hope that you took note there. I hope that you got some education on what it is that's happening from within society. I hope that you feel like I do. I hope that you're looking forward to us at Restore UK in the exposés that we're about to do over the next couple of weeks, once we've checked everything out and we have all the information that we need. We'll be coming on here within the next few weeks, and we'll be talking about particular individuals from within our community who are, they're being paid by the Irish government to disrupt, to demonize, to diminish, to try to separate, to cause division. They're being, aided and abetted by some from the nationalist and the Republican side. And this is only going to get worse unless that ordinary people stand up against this and call it out for exactly what it is. There's no room for any more destabilizers in this society. And I add, destabilizers who are making themselves rich off the backs of the detriment that is being caused here in Northern Ireland, right around the UK, and right across the Western world. So shame on them, is what I say. But, if we've anything to do with it, there'll be no hiding place for these particular people. So people, we've came to the end of our stream. I really wanted to show that this evening, and I really wanted to show how bad things really, really are. I'm going to play just a short video before that it is that we go, just to show you what it is that an activist looks like, and how to show you that the bunkers theory that these people are coming out with, these people have absolutely lost the plot. And why are they doing what they're doing? They're doing it because they're playing to these young children that have been indoctrinated, that have been turned into political activists to believe certain things from within schools. And these people are playing to these young people whenever they should be saying, now, hold on a minute. This isn't conducive to a stable society. Let's listen to Naomi Long. And you've heard this before if you follow this channel, as she calls people over the age of 50, let's say, stale, male, and pale. She was specifically talking about a man that served his community up in the Ballymoney area, a guy called Mervyn Story. She was specifically talking about Jim Allister whenever she was calling them stale, male, and pale. What type of a vile individual is this thing? And should this thing be a justice minister? Will the DUP permit this thing to be the justice minister? Well, if I had anything to do with it, she wouldn't have her hands near the levers of power ever again, for her ageism, for her sexism, for her racism, and for her misandry. And, well, what's the repercussions for her? So far, there has been no repercussions. Let's just remind ourselves of this thing, and then we'll be bidding everybody good night. We'll be playing us out with something happy, and we'll see you all next time.
In this constituency, I remember her standing up and saying stale, male, pale, and that's what this constituency has had since 1998.
With power comes responsibility, and people now need to take their responsibility seriously.
In this constituency, I remember her standing up and saying stale, male, pale, and that's what this constituency has had since 1998.
I looked outside. What did I see? A little bird. He looked at me. I lured him close. With a piece of bread. And then I smashed. His little head. The moral of the story is. You want some head. You need some bread. Right turn. Huh. looked outside. What did I see? What did I see? A little bird. A little bird. He looked at me. He looked at me. I lured him close. I lured him close. With a piece of bread. With a piece of bread. And then I smashed. And then I smashed his little head. His little head.